I never thought a joke could change the direction of my marriage so quickly or so quietly. I was standing in our kitchen one evening watching my husband Rowan scroll through his phone while dinner cooled on the stove. We had been married 11 years, long enough that teasing felt safe, harmless, almost affectionate. His friend Callum had always been a sensitive subject, but I thought I was being playful when I smiled and said, half laughing, that maybe he trusted Callum more than me sometimes. I expected an eye roll or a shrug. Instead, Rowan froze, thumb mid-swipe. That pause stretched longer than it should have. He locked the phone, set it face down, and looked at me with an expression I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't anger or embarrassment. It was something heavier, more deliberate. He asked why I would say that, and I shrugged, still smiling, saying it was just a joke. Rowan nodded slowly, like he was placing something fragile back into a box. Then he asked, very calmly, if I ever worried that jokes sometimes reveal truths we don't want to admit. My smile faded. I felt a flicker of unease, but laughed again. I told him he was overthinking it, that teasing was how we kept things light after long days and shared routines. Rowan listened without interrupting, which somehow made me talk more. I rambled about familiarity, about how everyone needs friends outside marriage. He agreed with all of it, nodding, calm, steady. Then he asked the question I wasn't ready for. He asked if I would feel the same way if I teased him about the men I confided in, the ones who knew my frustrations before he did. The room felt smaller suddenly. I opened my mouth, then closed it. I realized then that my joke had crossed an invisible line I pretended not to see. Rowan wasn't accusing me of anything, and that was the worst part. His voice stayed even, almost gentle, as he explained that trust erodes quietly, usually disguised as humor or honesty. He said he had laughed along with comments like that before because he didn't want conflict. But hearing it out loud made him wonder if I saw him as secondary in his own marriage. My chest tightened. I wanted to defend myself, but I also recognized the sting in his words. Silence settled between us. In that silence, memories surfaced that I hadn't examined honestly. Late-night messages with friends, casual comparisons, the way I sometimes rolled my eyes when Rowan talked about work or plans. None of it felt serious alone, but together they formed a pattern I didn't like acknowledging. Rowan stood up and began clearing the kitchen, not angrily, just methodically. He said he needed to ask something difficult because carrying it quietly had started to change how he felt about us. He asked if I still chose him every day or if habit had replaced intention. My throat burned as I watched. I followed him to the sink and tried to explain that love evolves, that comfort doesn't mean neglect. Rowan turned and said he understood evolution, but not dismissal. He said being teased about someone else felt like being ranked without consent. That sentence landed harder than any accusation could have. I felt exposed, suddenly aware of how casually I wielded words. Rowan admitted he had been carrying his own questions for months, wondering if he mattered as much as he used to. Hearing that cracked something open in me. I apologized, not reflexively, but slowly, understanding the weight of what I had done. We sat down at the table again, the food forgotten. I told him I never intended to belittle him, that my teasing masked my own restlessness and unmet expectations. Rowan listened, eyes steady, and said intention doesn't cancel impact. He explained that when he hears jokes like that, he wonders if he's slowly becoming optional in my life. That fear, he said, made him pull back emotionally, protectively. I felt the cost of my carelessness then. I promised to be more mindful, but he asked me not to promise quickly. He asked me to think about why humor felt safer than honesty. That question stayed with me long after the conversation ended. I realized how easily jokes become shields, allowing us to say risky things without accountability. Over the next days, Rowan was kind but distant, giving us space to reflect. I felt the weight of that distance more than any argument. I thought about the ways I had taken his steadiness for granted, assuming it would always be there. One evening, I finally told him that his question scared me because it forced me to confront my complacency. Rowan nodded and said fear can be useful if it leads to change. We didn't fix everything that night or the next. Trust doesn't rebuild on apologies alone. But something shifted after that question. I stopped using humor as a shortcut and started speaking more carefully, listening longer. Rowan opened up about feeling unseen, about how comparisons made him doubt his place beside me. Those conversations were uncomfortable, but honest in a way we hadn't been for years. I learned that teasing can wound deeper than anger because it hides behind smiles. Slowly, intentionally, we began choosing each other again, not by habit, but with awareness. The joke I once dismissed had forced a reckoning. Looking back, I understand why Rowan's question unsettled me so deeply. It wasn't about jealousy or his friend at all. It was about respect, about whether I still saw my husband as my partner or just a fixture in my life. Teasing feels harmless until it exposes what we've been avoiding. I learned that love requires vigilance, not just comfort. Words shape the safety of a marriage more than we admit. I never teased him like that again, not because I'm afraid, but because I finally understood the question beneath the joke. Sometimes one quiet moment is enough to change everything.